It was close to midnight when a sharp knock rattled my front door, dragging me out of the half-sleep I had finally managed to sink into. Two men in dark uniforms stood on the porch, flashing what looked like badges and holding a paper they claimed was an arrest warrant for threatening the HOA board. My stomach twisted before I could speak, and one of them grabbed my wrist with a grip colder than steel. Then my wife, usually quiet and dressed in her floral pajamas, stepped forward with a voice that cut like a blade. In seconds, the men turned pale and ran into the night. That was when I realized I might not know the woman I had lived beside for 20 years. Who exactly was the woman I shared my life with? My name is Mark, a 45-year-old retired civil engineer who left the field after an accident left me with a limp that never fully healed. I spend most of my days tinkering in the backyard workshop, smoothing out cedar boards, and finding peace in the smell of sawdust. My wife, Hannah, 39, carries herself with a quiet grace, her chestnut hair brushing her shoulders. At work, she favors crisp white blouses, but at home, she is all soft fabrics and floral pajamas, always wearing a silver bracelet she never takes off. People say her eyes are gentle, but to me they often feel unreadable, as if she guards something beyond reach. Then, there's Mrs. Carter, our HOA president, a woman of 52 who dresses like a judge, hair wound into a severe bun, and a folder always clutched against her chest. She ruled our neighborhood with the firmness of law itself. The conflict began with something that seemed harmless, a wooden deck in my backyard. The conflict begins with nothing more than wood, nails, and a sketch I keep folded in my pocket. I decide to build a wooden deck in the backyard, a gift for Hannah after years of her hinting she wants a space to drink morning coffee outdoors. I measure everything carefully, checking the building code twice and hiring a contractor to help with the heavier lifting. The boards fit perfectly, the railings smooth under my palm. Neighbors stroll past and smile, giving approving nods. One even jokes that my deck might raise property values for the entire street. But then there is Mrs. Carter. She walks by slowly, her sharp eyes scanning every inch of my handiwork, lips pursed as though the smell of sawdust offends her. Without a word, she scribbles notes into a folder and disappears. The first attack comes 3 days later, folded neatly in an envelope slipped under my front door. It is a notice from the HOA, declaring that my deck exceeds maximum height by 6 inches and must be removed or face penalties. My stomach sinks, but I know the claim is false. I double-check with my contractor, who pulls out his own measurements and even the permit number stamped by the city. He laughs, telling me to relax. Everything is legal. Yet when I present this proof to Mrs. Carter, she shakes her head with mock sympathy, as though I am a child caught cheating on a test. "The board has spoken," she says flatly. Her words echo in my mind long after she turns her back. Soon after, the neighborhood begins to look different. I wake one morning to find bright orange warning signs plastered onto my fence and even nailed into the posts of the deck itself. Violation, unsafe structure, remove immediately. The signs scream in capital letters, and they seem to multiply overnight. Neighbors who once smiled at me now whisper from their porches, glancing away when I catch their eyes. It feels like an infection spreading across the block, one woman's disapproval turning into a public shaming campaign. I try to brush it off, but every time I step outside I feel eyes on me, judging, condemning. The third strike cuts deeper. A letter arrives by certified mail, this time with legal threats. Mrs. Carter claims the HOA will take me to court unless I dismantle the deck within 3 days. The ultimatum feels absurd, like a bomb planted under my own home. I slam the letter on the kitchen counter, expecting Hannah to be furious on my behalf. Instead, she stays strangely calm. She tells me maybe it is easier to comply, to take the deck down quietly rather than risk a fight. Her tone is soft, but it slices through me. I built this deck with my own hands, every plank chosen with care, every nail hammered with the thought of giving her joy. How can she ask me to destroy it so casually? Her suggestion leaves me more unsettled than the threat itself. I start digging for answers and find a pattern that chills me. 3 families before us had added structures to their homes: a gazebo, a sunroom, a backyard studio. Each time the HOA declared violations. Each time, The homeowners resisted at first, then suddenly sold their houses and disappeared within months. No one talks about it openly, but when I press an older neighbor, he mutters that no one wins against the board before retreating inside his house and shutting the blinds. It feels like I am standing on the edge of a cliff, about to follow the same path into silence and exile. The attacks escalate in ways I do not expect. Late one night, I notice Hannah is not beside me in bed. I wander through the house, calling softly, but the rooms echo back emptiness. My chest tightens until I spot her from the upstairs window. She is slipping into the car, hair pulled back, face set with determination. She drives off without a word. Curiosity and fear tangle together, and I follow at a distance, keeping my headlights low. She pulls into a dimly lit parking lot behind an abandoned strip mall, where two men in plain clothes wait. She does not hug them, does not even smile. She takes notes, photographs, and exchanges quick words before they scatter like shadows. My wife returns home past 2 a.m, slipping back into bed as though nothing happened. I lie awake, staring at the ceiling, questions hammering my skull. Days later, another scene slices me open. I return home early from the hardware store and find Hannah in the backyard, crouched near the deck with a small camera in her hand. She jumps when she sees me, fumbling to hide the device. "Just documenting," she mutters, brushing past me. But the way her shoulders stiffen, the way her eyes avoid mine, it is not the behavior of someone protecting me. It is the behavior of someone hiding secrets. For the first time in 20 years, I wonder if she is standing on the other side of the line, aligned with Mrs. Carter and the HOA. The fear gnaws at me relentlessly. Every time Hannah steps out, I imagine her whispering in hushed tones, feeding information to the very people tearing our lives apart. Every late-night phone call, every unexplained errand becomes evidence against her in my mind. I want to confront her, but the words die in my throat. What if she confirms my worst suspicion? What if the woman who shares my bed is also the knife at my back? The breaking point comes one stormy night. Rain lashes the windows, thunder rattles the walls, and I hear movement downstairs. I creep quietly, heart pounding. Hannah is on the phone, voice low but urgent, saying words I cannot fully catch, but I hear enough. Documents, photographs, they cannot know yet. She ends the call quickly, and when she turns, her eyes flicker with something unreadable, fear, guilt, or perhaps both. She brushes past me without explanation, leaving me standing in the shadows of our own living room, cold dread spreading through me. I return to the deck, my supposed violation, the symbol of this chaos. I run my hands along the railing, the wood slick with rain. Once, it was a gift of love. Now, it feels like a curse. The signs on the fence glow under the storm's lightning flashes, mocking me. If even my wife stands on their side, who can I trust? I cannot shake the doubt, so I begin searching through the house when Hannah is away. My hands tremble as I open drawers and rifle through papers, guilt gnawing at me, yet suspicion driving me harder. In the back of her closet, behind neatly stacked sweaters, I find a small lockbox. It is not locked. Inside are bank statements tied to an account I never knew existed. My breath catches when I see deposits from a law firm, regular payments that look like bribes. I stare at the numbers until they blur, my heart pounding in my ears. Every hidden meeting, every late-night call suddenly adds up to betrayal. My wife is not standing beside me, she is standing with them. The evidence grows darker. When I speak again with the contractor who helped me build the deck, his smile falters. Over coffee at a diner, he leans closer and whispers that he received instructions he thought came from me, but later, he realized they came from Hannah. She told him to adjust measurements ever so slightly, enough to leave the deck off by a margin, enough to give the HOA leverage. His eyes hold pity as he admits this, as though he is delivering a death sentence to my marriage. I sit frozen, the taste of burnt coffee bitter in my mouth. If this is true, Hannah set me up from the beginning. I confront her that night, anger shaking my words. "Why?" I demand, shoving the papers and receipts in front of her. "Why are you working against me? Why are you taking money from them?" She does not deny it. She only stares at me with eyes that seem sharper than I have ever seen, then turns and walks out the door without a single explanation. The slam reverberates through the walls, leaving me alone with the sound of my own ragged breathing. For the first time, I feel truly abandoned. The following days, I spiral. I cannot eat. I cannot sleep. Every creak in the house sounds like a betrayal echoing back at me. Then, unexpectedly, a frail voice calls out as I take the trash to the curb. It is Mr. Davis, my elderly neighbor who rarely leaves his porch. He beckons me closer, his eyes darting nervously around. In a hushed voice, he tells me he has seen Mrs. Carter meeting with real estate brokers in secret, always after the HOA forces another family to leave. She profits from it, he croaks. She wants you gone because your house is worth a fortune. He coughs and retreats back inside, leaving me with a spark of clarity. Maybe I'm not crazy. Maybe there is a larger game here. Fueled by desperation, I dig deeper. I spend nights searching online records, property transfers, and court filings. Patterns emerge. Each time a homeowner is forced out, a shell company swoops in to buy the property, only to resell it at a profit months later. The web traces back to names connected with Mrs. Carter. Still, one piece does not fit the bank account under Hannah's name. If she is part of this conspiracy, why does she not flaunt it? Why is she sneaking in parking lots and photographing people? The turning point slams into me like a thunderclap. I break into her office at home, searching more aggressively this time. In a locked drawer, I find a file thicker than anything I have ever seen her keep. Inside are photographs, documents, and transcripts. My hands shake as I flip through them, hidden cameras capturing Carter exchanging envelopes with contractors, copies of falsified HOA violation letters, and bank transfer records showing thousands funneled into offshore accounts. Then, at the very top, I find a laminated ID card. My vision swims as I read the words, "Licensed private investigator." My wife is not a clerk. She is not betraying me. She is undercover. The realization leaves me staggering. Every late-night meeting, every photograph, every cryptic phone call, none of it is betrayal. It is evidence. The payments in her bank account are not bribes, but funding for her investigation through a legal firm hiring her off the books. She has been risking everything, even my trust, to build a case strong enough to crush Mrs. Carter and her accomplices. I drop into her chair, head in my hands, shame burning through me. All along, I believed she was the knife in my back, when in truth, I have been her cover, her bait. When Hannah comes home that evening, I look at her differently. She does not speak immediately, only watches me with those guarded eyes. For the first time, I see the exhaustion etched around them, the weight of secrets she has carried alone. I whisper, almost broken, "Why didn't you tell me?" Her shoulders sag, and she finally answers, her voice low but steady. "Because if you knew, you would have been in danger. They watch everything, Mark. I needed them to believe you were just another victim." The truth lands heavy. She has been protecting me by letting me believe she betrayed me. The irony stings, but underneath it is something stronger: admiration. She is not just my wife. She is a fighter, a hunter tracking predators in our own backyard. The days after the revelation, I wrestle with a storm inside me. Relief mixes with guilt, admiration with anger. I want to hug Hannah for protecting me, yet I want to shout at her for leaving me in the dark. But instead of exploding, I start to listen. She lays out her plan, patient and precise, like a chess master revealing every hidden move. She explains how Carter uses intimidation to create fear, how every violation is a calculated step to push families towards selling. She shows me recordings of hushed meetings where contractors are promised bonuses if they help fabricate measurements. Each piece of evidence is another nail in Carter's coffin, but the case needs one final push, a public exposure that cannot be swept away. I insist on helping, though Hannah resists at first. "You've already been through enough," she says, her hand resting lightly on mine. But my pride will not let me remain a bystander. "You used me as bait," I tell her, voice steadier than I feel. "Then let me finish the role." For a moment, she studies me as though weighing the risk. Finally, She nods, and the partnership is sealed. From then on, I watch differently. Every time Carter parades through the neighborhood with her clipboard, I see not a tyrant but a cornered animal, unaware of the trap closing around her. I begin documenting openly, walking around with a camera, daring her to notice. At night, Hannah and I compare notes at the kitchen table, the same table where I once accused her of betrayal. Now, it becomes a war room, cluttered with photos, maps, and timelines. The betrayal I once imagined turns into a bond forged in fire. Still, the risk is everywhere. Twice, I notice unfamiliar cars parked at the end of our street, engines idling. Once, I find tire tracks pressed into the soft earth near our fence, as though someone has been watching. Hannah warns me not to underestimate Carter. She's desperate now, she says. Desperate people make mistakes, but they also get dangerous. Her words keep me awake at night, listening for footsteps outside, for knocks at the door. The memory of those fake police officers still lingers like a bruise. One evening, Hannah comes home later than usual, her blouse wrinkled, her bracelet scratched as though scraped against metal. I ask if she's all right, and she only replies, "Almost there, just a little longer." The cryptic reassurance both soothes and unsettles me. I realize she has lived with this cloak and dagger existence for years, while I have barely survived weeks of it. I wonder how many times she smiled at me over dinner, while carrying secrets that could shatter us both. But the biggest shift comes inside me. Fear is no longer the dominant force. In its place grows a simmering determination. They wanted me broken, humiliated, driven out of my home. Instead, they have hardened me. My wife is not my enemy, Carter Island. And if Hannah has been fighting in the shadows all this time, then I will stand beside her in the light. Together, we begin preparing for the showdown. Hannah coordinates with her contacts at the police, arranging a sting operation that will catch Carter red-handed. She warns me it will be dangerous, that Carter may lash out one final time. I tell her, I do not care. This is my home, my life, and I will not let them strip it away. As I sit on the deck one night, the very structure that started it all, I feel the weight of what is coming. Soon, this wooden platform will no longer be just a gift or a violation. It will be the stage where truth finally confronts corruption. My pulse steadies as I realize the days of waiting are over. The counterattack begins now. All along, I am not betrayed, I am bait. The night before the HOA meeting, I hardly sleep. My body lies in bed, but my mind races with images of Carter, of the warning signs nailed into my fence, of neighbors whispering like vultures circling overhead. Hannah is downstairs in the kitchen, pacing like a general preparing for battle. When I come down, I find the table covered in folders, photographs, USB drives, and legal pads scribbled with notes. She is calmer than I expect, her movements deliberate, her eyes sharp with focus. "Tomorrow," she tells me, her voice even but hard as steel, "they think they're going to humiliate you. Instead, we're going to tear this open for everyone to see." She slides one folder across to me, and I see the photographs again. Carter exchanging envelopes, contractors smirking over falsified reports, real estate brokers signing secret deals. I have looked at these images before, but tonight they feel different. They are not fragments anymore. They are ammunition. The following evening, I walk into the HOA hall with my heart pounding in my throat. Rows of folding chairs fill the space, neighbors murmuring anxiously as they glance toward the front. Some look at me with pity, others with judgment, but all seem to be waiting for a spectacle. Carter stands at the front, tall and rigid, her dark suit pressed to perfection, her hair pulled so tightly it shines under the fluorescent lights. She clutches her ever-present folder, like it holds the final word of law. Around her, the other board members sit like loyal jurors, their eyes fixed forward, their faces blank. Hannah sits beside me in the front row, her bracelet glinting faintly under the lights, her expression unreadable. Carter begins the meeting with the confidence of someone who has never lost control. She speaks my name with a kind of disdain, announcing to the entire hall that I have violated community standards, endangered property values, and ignored repeated warnings. Gasps ripple through the crowd, followed by whispers that buzz like flies. She points to a projector screen, where enlarged photographs of my deck appear, angles distorted to make the structure look unstable, threatening, even dangerous. "This deck," she declares, her voice echoing through the hall, "is not only illegal, it is a hazard to every single home in this neighborhood. We cannot tolerate such blatant disregard for our rules." Her words land like blows, and I feel the weight of dozens of eyes on me. My throat tightens, but I say nothing. Silence is part of the plan. Just as Carter is about to motion for a vote, Hannah rises. The movement draws every gaze in the room. She steps forward, her heels clicking against the floor, and places a thick folder on the table in front of Carter. Her voice rings out, steady and commanding. "What Mrs. Carter has not told you," she says, "is that this deck is perfectly legal, and that these so-called violations are part of a much larger scheme." Gasps echo through the hall. Carter's eyes narrow as Hannah flips open the folder, revealing not documents against me, but evidence against Carter herself. The first photograph shows Carter shaking hands with a contractor while sliding an envelope across the table. The second shows her in a cafe with a real estate broker. The third reveals her signing documents tied directly to a shell company. The hall erupts in murmurs. Carter tries to laugh it off, her voice sharp with mockery. "This is fabricated. Lies. Don't fall for this circus." But Hannah does not waver. She produces notarized affidavits, time-stamped video footage, and copies of bank transfers. One by one, she lays them out like cards in a winning hand, each piece of evidence cutting deeper into Carter's facade. The neighbors shift uneasily, whispering louder now, no longer about me but about her. For the first time, Carter looks rattled. Then, something extraordinary happens. The neighbors themselves begin to stand. The Johnsons, who had been forced to sell their home 2 years earlier, step forward and testify. They describe the relentless violations, the constant threats, the way Carter manipulated them until they had no choice but to leave. The Garcias speak next, recounting how contractors refused to work for them after Carter labeled their home unsafe. An elderly widow, her voice trembling but resolute, tells how she was cornered into selling her late husband's house for half its value. Each story hits the room like a thunderclap, and with each voice, Carter's grip on the room weakens. She bangs her fist against the table, shouting for order, but the tide has turned. The people no longer see her as an enforcer of rules, but as a predator feeding on their trust. The anger in the room grows, spilling over in shouts and accusations. Carter tries to regain control, her face flushed, her voice cracking, and then, at the height of the chaos, the doors slam open. 2 men in police uniforms storm inside, their boots pounding against the tile. "Mark Johnson," one of them barks. "You are under arrest for harassment and threats against the HOA board." Gasps ripple through the hall again, sharper this time. My body tenses as they stride toward me, handcuffs glinting in the light. For one terrible moment, I believe it is happening all over again. I am about to be dragged away in disgrace. But then Hannah steps forward, her hand raised like a shield. In a single motion, she pulls out a badge and flashes it high. Her voice cuts through the panic with absolute authority. "These men are not police officers," she declares. The room falls silent. Hannah turns toward the projector, and suddenly, new footage plays across the screen. It shows the same 2 men in a parking lot earlier that afternoon, meeting with Carter and accepting cash in exchange for their little performance. The crowd gasps. The fake officers freeze, their faces draining of color as shouts erupt around them. Before they can react, the real police who have been waiting just outside flood into the room. Weapons drawn, they order the imposters to the ground, handcuffing them in front of the entire neighborhood. Carter's composure shatters completely. She tries to deny it, screams that it is a setup, that she is the victim of a conspiracy. But the evidence is overwhelming. The witnesses undeniable, and the crowd unforgiving. The police turn to her, presenting the compiled case Hannah has built for months: hidden recordings, falsified documents, secret bank transfers. When the handcuffs finally close around Carter's wrists, the room erupts in cheers. Neighbors shout, clap, and even weep. The queen of the HOA, the self-proclaimed guardian of the neighborhood, is dragged out like a criminal, exposed in the harshest light. I sit frozen for a moment, the adrenaline pounding through me. Then Hannah's hand finds mine, firm and steady. For weeks I thought she betrayed me. Tonight, she stands revealed, not just as my wife, but as the woman who brought justice crashing down on the tyrant who ruled our lives. The neighbors gather around us, their voices filled with gratitude. Some pat my shoulder. Others embrace Hannah. The hall that once felt like a courtroom now feels like a victory field. Outside, red and blue lights flash against the night sky as Carter and her accomplices are loaded into police cars. Cameras capture every second, reporters shouting questions that Carter refuses to answer. Her dark suit is rumpled, her hair unraveling, her folder abandoned on the table inside. She is no longer the towering figure who ruled over us. She is simply a criminal, stripped of power and exposed for what she truly island. As I watch the cars pull away, a strange calm settles over me. For the first time in months, I feel like I can breathe. The fear that once chained me is gone, replaced by a fierce pride. Justice has spoken tonight, loud enough for the entire neighborhood to hear. And though it nearly broke me, I realize now that every step led to this moment. The woman who once ruled the neighborhood is dragged away in front of flashing cameras, with nowhere left to hide. The weeks after Carter's arrest unfold, like waking from a long nightmare. For months, I have lived under constant pressure warning signs nailed into my fence, neighbors' whispers slithering through the air, and the looming threat of losing everything I built. Now, all of that is gone. The signs are torn down. The whispers stop. The air feels lighter, cleaner, as if the neighborhood itself exhales for the first time in years. Yet even in this peace, I walk with caution. The shadow of Carter lingers in my bones, and every time I hear a knock at the door, my chest still tightens until I remember she is gone, and she cannot hurt us anymore. The media devours the story. Reporters swarm the courthouse, cameras flash in every direction, and headlines scream across the state. HOA. President convicted of fraud. Neighborhood tyranny exposed. Families reclaim homes after scheme uncovered. For weeks, I see Carter's face on every channel, no longer stern and commanding, but pale, drawn, and desperate. Her once immaculate hair is messy, her voice hoarse as she is led in handcuffs through crowds of journalists. I watch from my living room, feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and sorrow. She built her power on fear and lies, and now she is nothing but a criminal stripped of her mask. The trial moves quickly. Hannah's evidence is airtight, every document and video lining up with neighbors' testimonies. Families return to the stand, recounting the years they lost, the homes they were forced to abandon. Their voices carry not just anger, but relief that they are finally heard. The jury deliberates only briefly before delivering the verdict. Guilty on every count. Carter is sentenced to prison, and the restitution she must pay is staggering. It will never erase the pain, but it is a start. Her accomplices fall one by one, contractors fined, brokers stripped of licenses, even the imposters who pretended to be police officers facing time behind bars. Justice does not come quietly this time. It roars like thunder, rolling across every corner of our community. For the neighborhood, this is a rebirth. Fear is no longer the language spoken on our street. At the next election, neighbors choose a new board, not with trembling hands but with pride. They rename it the Fair Community, a symbolic rejection of Carter's iron grip. Meetings become open, transparent, filled with laughter and sometimes heated arguments, but never with fear. I attend one of the first sessions, and for the first time, I hear my neighbors speak freely, their voices unshackled. It feels like stepping into sunlight after years underground. For me and Hannah, the path is more complicated. Trust is not rebuilt in a single night, no matter how dramatic the revelations. I still wake at times in the middle of the night, remembering the look in her eyes when I accused her, remembering the cold silence between us when I believed she betrayed me. But now, instead of shutting me out, she lets me in. She tells me pieces of her world, how long she has worked as a private investigator, how she balances the weight of secrets with the need to protect those she loves. She does not tell me everything, and I do not expect her to. What matters is that I no longer mistake her silence for betrayal. Now, I see it as strength. The community begins to view Hannah differently too. To them, she is not just my quiet wife with unreadable eyes. She is the woman who exposed corruption, who faced down imposters, who stood in the HOA hall and tore Carter's empire apart. At block parties, neighbors approach her with gratitude. Parents tell their children stories of her bravery. She becomes, without asking for it, a symbol of justice, proof that one person's determination can protect an entire community. I see pride in her, though she tries to hide it, and I feel pride too. For years I thought I was the builder in our family, shaping wood and stone. But Hannah is the true builder. She builds safety, trust, justice. The day Carter's sentence is finalized, the neighborhood organizes a celebration. They ask to hold it in our backyard, on the very deck that began it all. I hesitate at first, still remembering the way it once felt, cursed, marked as a violation, a reason to destroy me. But Hannah squeezes my hand and says, "Let's reclaim it." So we do. That evening the deck transforms. String lights glow overhead, casting a warm golden hue across the wood. Tables are set with homemade dishes, casseroles, pies, fresh bread, and pitchers of lemonade. The smell of grilled food drifts through the air, mingling with laughter. Children run back and forth, their bare feet thudding against the planks once condemned as dangerous. Neighbors who once avoided me now sit shoulder to shoulder, plates piled high, their conversations lively and unafraid. Music drifts from a speaker, and someone strums a guitar. The air hums with life. I stand at the railing, taking it all in. Just months ago, this same deck was painted as a menace, a symbol of my supposed defiance. Now, it is the heart of our community, a place where unity grows stronger than fear. People toast to justice, to new beginnings, to the courage that toppled Carter's reign. For once, I am not the man under suspicion or shame. I am simply a neighbor among neighbors, part of something bigger than myself. At the peak of the evening, Hannah lifts her glass. The crowd quiets, and her voice carries clear and strong. "Justice isn't always loud," she says, "but when it speaks, no one can silence it." The words linger in the air, and the crowd erupts in cheers, glasses clinking in harmony. I look at her, feeling both awe and gratitude. She risked everything, even my trust, to bring us here. And now, standing in the glow of the lights with our community gathered around us, I understand that what she gave me is more than justice. She gave me back my home. As the night winds down and neighbors head home, I remain on the deck with Hannah. The laughter fades into the distance, the lights twinkle softly, and the wood beneath my feet feels solid, steadfast. I remember the fear, the suspicion, the sense that everything I built was turning against me. And I remember the twist, the revelation that changed everything. I was never betrayed, I was bait. That truth no longer stings. It steadies me. The story of Carter will fade into memory, replaced by new headlines, new struggles. But here, in this neighborhood, her downfall leaves a lasting legacy. She becomes a warning etched into our history, proof of what happens when power is abused and when silence allows it to spread. And this deck, once a weapon used against me, stands as the answer. I run my hand along the railing, the wood smooth under my touch. It is no longer a violation, it is no longer a curse. It is a monument to resilience, to unity, to justice that cannot be silenced. The wooden deck, once condemned, now holds the weight of laughter, of voices free, of neighbors unafraid. And as Hannah leans against me, the stars glimmering above, I know this truth. No matter how deep the shadows, truth and justice always stand firm.